What's up guys, my name is Akash Vaghela. I'm a coach, author and founder of RNT Fitness, a transformation company that's changing the lives of people all around the world every single day. Today I'm super pumped to welcome you to the brand new Road to Vegan Shredded, a 6-part series dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of what it takes to go to the extremes of body compositions, get shredded, all whilst doing it on a vegan diet. So stay tuned every couple of weeks as I take you through this journey. Let's do this. These are my trusted travel scales here. $70 today. 78 kilos. 78 kilos. Okay, so 1.5 kilos down so far. Down slightly at 79.5, down to 78. Now I've got the last 7 to 8 kilos to go. The aim really is to hit 70. I've never hit below 71 shredded, so that's gonna be a tough challenge. But I always find getting to 75 is pretty straightforward. 75 to 70 is when the games begin. So one thing I've been doing for years, every single morning when I wake up, is it's pretty much a slight teaspoon of, or about this much teaspoon of Himalayan salt, and then just mix it up with a bunch of water. Stir it and then just gulp it down. It really helps with hydration. Salt is one of the most underrated things when it comes to just staying in shape, but also just staying sharp, having the right energy, and making sure everything's firing right for your digestion in the morning. So yeah, a little bit of salt. I don't know how much there is in science-wise, but I know placebo, anecdotally for years, it really does help get things going in the morning. Next thing I do every morning. There's this trusted chair that I use sit on my reading, and I'll do like a couple minutes of journaling, and then at the moment I'll do like 5-10 minutes of reading as well. At the moment I'm reading a mix of The Art of War and Meditations from Mark Aurelius. So I'll be exploring some older books to really tune into like the key principles and timeless truths, as opposed to I think what's the latest fads. Because anything that's lasted for over 500 years and been passed down through generations, you know it's worth reading. So currently exploring a mix of Mark Aurelius and The Art of War. So I'll typically read like a chapter a day, do a bit of journaling, meditate for 20 minutes, and then get cracking with the day. So on the morning walk, morning staple that we have, after we've done that little routine of reading, journaling, we'll head out to our favourite park, Whipple Park. We can see how beautiful it is. Might be biased, but I think it's the best park in London. So yeah, we'll do a 30-minute walk around here, then usually head over to the gym. I'll do cardio or my weight session. So head on from this, and then it's over to the making of the V60 coffee. One quick tip for maximizing productivity that I love using is repeating the same song without words, like a piano song or binaural beats or something similar to that. Classical music goes really well, and just playing it over and over and over again on repeat. What it ends up doing is it just blurs into the background as white noise, and you can just focus, like you can have that razor sharp focus. So quick tip to try. Despite a lot of progress, there's still this myth out there that if you're on a vegetarian diet, let alone a vegan diet, you can't get results with your body. Now this is absolute BS, but it still shocks me how to this day, so many people come to you and say, but I'm vegetarian, but I'm vegan, so I can't do this. And what's even more shocking is how many people have said, oh, I've been to a personal trainer before and they said to me, if you don't eat meat, we're not going to work with you. Or if you don't eat meat, you won't get results. Now this is like
this is insane. And the fact that it still goes on to this day. And I remember about 10 years ago when it was really bad, like this whole myth. And I thought to myself, I need to squash this myth. And I became known as the guy amongst my colleagues as the one who got vegetarians and vegans into shape. And people used to always come up to me and ask me, how are you doing it? How are you doing it? And the availability of what it's like now to be vegan was so much different back then. Back then it was literally just, all you had was tofu and shakes. Whereas now there's so many more easy ways to make this happen. So despite this myth, and despite me being able to help so many vegetarians and vegans, I was still eating a kilo of meat a day. Now, before I tell you what's changed, let me take you back in time. Okay, so I started off as a 17-year-old skinny fat kid with moobs and a pot belly. And I remember very distinctly being in swimming classes and being super self-conscious of like the rolls on my stomach and like the way my moobs would show. And I can laugh now, but I knew then that back then my self-confidence was super low. You know, I went on to the gym and I had no idea that my life was about to change, because over the coming months and over the coming year, I discovered a level of focus, control, and confidence that I never had in my life before. And I discovered what the physical being the vehicle for the rest of your life is. And as a result of it, my career trajectory changed as well. Because I got to the point where I was writing my personal statement for university application into law, and I saw there was something called sports science, and decided there and then that I was going to just leave this sort of almost foregone conclusion that I was heading towards a legal career, and decided to dedicate myself towards fitness. And then obviously I told my parents, and the first thing they said to me was, how are you going to pay the bills? And coming from a South Asian background where you're either doing medicine, finance, or law, if you're not doing one of those three things, you're considered a failure. And it wasn't that they thought of me like that, but their first inclination was, how are you going to pay the bills? And I had no idea. For me, it was just like, I'm going to make it work somehow, some way. This is going to be it. Because I learned from a young age that life is short. When I was 15 years old, so a couple of years before this happened, I lost my first cousin to a lifelong battle with cancer, and he was only 19 years old. That taught me how short life can be. And when people ask me now, what made you make that decision? Sometimes I think there must have been something innate from that forced me to think, I need to take the road less traveled, and I need to do something that aligns with my purpose. Because once I discovered how powerful the physical is as the vehicle to change your life, for me it became then internally that this is what I'm here to do. So then I started in the fitness industry. I went to university and studied sports science. I started helping my friends around me for free, just to experiment, get some skin in the game, learn the ropes essentially. But I was completely obsessed with it, to the point, looking back, it was an unhealthy obsession with fitness. I was so single-minded. All I was doing was reading about fitness. I spent till the early hours reading about it. I was driving myself nuts into paralysis by analysis, thinking, should I do this program? Should I do that program? I was jumping from program to program, from diet to diet. In a way, experimenting with a lot of things, but in a way, just making all the mistakes that so many people make now, where you're jumping from one thing and never really sticking to anything that works. But I was also learning a lot of what works and what doesn't work. And I was experimenting so much. But the single-mindedness I had meant that I was living a very restricted lifestyle. For example, I'd be on a holiday with my friends, and after a meal, I think, I've had some carbs, I've had a dessert, so my insulin levels are spiked. I need to go calm it down by having some omega-3s. So I remember distinctly being at the dinner table, had my dessert, and I'd be like, guys, I just need to excuse myself. And I'd get off the table, I'd run back to my hotel room, I'd down 3 grams of fish oils, and I'd be like, okay, cool, now we've stabilized the blood sugars, and now we're cool. Crazy stuff like this, which we know makes no difference now, but back then, I thought every single detail mattered, which is why now I'm so focused on building sustainable lifestyle solutions for people to get into incredible shape, build a sustainable lifestyle solution, then learn how to stay in shape around busy lifestyles whilst being flexible, without restriction, without yo-yoing. So as I went through this fitness journey, I went through the overthinking phase, I went through the obsessive, restrictive phase, and then around 2014, I really realized that my niche was in body composition for regular people. I thought to myself, if I want to take people to the extreme, I need to go to the extreme myself. I need to learn what that entire spectrum looks like to be able to empathize with all the different struggles, moods, mind games that you face along that journey of getting into shape. And I thought to myself, there's no better way to learn the extremes of body composition than bodybuilding. So in 2014, I entered my first bodybuilding competition at the BMBF junior category, and it was a 17-week diet. Up till then, I'd gotten lean, I'd gotten beach lean, I'd seen abs, but I'd never gotten like shredded to the point where I really had to test myself. So my goal for that year was just to get into the best shape possible, and I ended up winning a bodybuilding competition. But what came after changed the whole trajectory of the methodology that we've now built for all our members, in that I got into the shape of my life, but I had no game plan for what came afterwards. I won my show. A few days later, I headed to an all-inclusive. And at the all-inclusive, I had no idea of the hormones and the changes in hormones that you experience when you're that lean, and just how much it messes up with your hunger signals. And I literally spent the whole week binging, and I came back 7 kilos heavier after 7 days. And when I experienced that, firstly, I was completely embarrassed, having just been, invited to the national bodybuilding competition a week before, and a week later, I'm 7 kilos heavier because I couldn't control my food. I realized then why yo-yoing, rebounding, spinning your wheels on constant diets is such a big problem, because no one had a game plan for what comes afterwards. And that's why now at RNT we're 12-month minimum. That's why our whole brand and our whole methodology is built around long-term transformation, because I experienced in 2014 what I want no one ever to experience again. So I went through this journey of yo-yoing for about a year, and then when I decided enough was enough, I shifted my focus from aesthetics and just trying to stay lean to performance. I became obsessed with strength building, building muscle, and for the next 2-3 years, my whole focus was on just building as much muscle as possible. And this is when I coined the phrase embracing the fluff, because I worked up from 71 kilos at my absolute lightest, and we worked steadily up all the way up to 90 kilos. Now I probably went a bit too far, and there was a point of diminishing returns, but I embraced the fluff to the point that I was at my strongest of all time, but also to the point where I really just ended up a bigger version of the skinny fat moves and a pot belly that I started with. In 2017, when I competed again, the goal was 2 things, or 3 things actually. The first one was to get striations on my glutes. Second goal was to do it in a way where I wasn't restricting myself from socials, I wasn't restricting myself from my lifestyle. I was living a complete lifestyle solution throughout the entire prep. And the third thing, and the biggest one, was not to repeat the mistakes of 2014 and lose control afterwards. So the goal was to get a smooth consolidation and come out of it in a really good way. And the good news is, I came second in my middleweight class, and I consolidated really, really well. So that really crystallized the methodology of consolidation and how to effectively come out of a dieting phase. I'd experienced everything from low confidence to binging to purging, all the different elements. And it'd been a journey of 10 years to get to the body I wanted, in the lifestyle solution I wanted, where I'm eating intuitively, etc. But as RNT was growing, as my business was growing, I started to neglect my mental health, and I started thinking, I can get away with missing a few training sessions, I can get away with doing less steps. And then in the start of 2019, I got the biggest wake-up call to date, and as I collapsed twice in my bathroom. And it still shocks me now saying it, because I was like, how did I get to the point? I was so far off my game that I'd collapsed. My body was just like, nah, you're done. Looking back, I was so close to hitting my head on the toilet, and I think to myself, things could have gone either way there. So in 2019, I thought to myself, I need to be able to find a lifestyle solution, find a way to live this lifestyle whilst also battling the demands of a growing business. So in 2019, I reset the bar, and ever since then, I feel like I've finally got a lifestyle solution that works for me, that allows me to eat intuitively year-round, to stay in shape year-round, to feel, look and perform at my best year-round. And whilst I'm not interested in heavy bulks and putting on a lot of body weight to build muscle. I'm more concerned around feeling good, looking good year round, and performing at my highest, so I'm in line with my priorities on a day-to-day basis. Health and fitness in the nation and in society and in community isn't a number one priority, but it will become there slowly if more and more people take action on this journey. So the most rewarding part is knowing that your journey can inspire others, and we see that every day when we help people and then they help others as a result of it, because of that inspired action.
Okay, so supplements are one of the most popular topics, and there's so much crap out there. I keep it super simple when it comes to supplements. So for my training, as I'm about to head out to the gym, I'll use intrafusion amino acids and creatine monohydrate. And I'll mix a scoop of each into my shaker. That'll form what I'll have during the workout itself. And then just day-to-day health subs, especially now that I'm on a vegan diet, there's two things I take specifically for this. So omega-3s from microalgae. This is really useful to just make sure that omega-3s are covered, because they won't otherwise be on a natural vegan diet. So I take algae omega-3s and a multivit with extra B-vit support. Again, another one of those common deficiencies that vegans might face. So I take those two to cover my bases, and then I've just got like a big tub of vitamin D basically. Anyone living in the UK or anywhere where there's not much sunlight, vitamin D, 2,000 IU a day goes a long way in just keeping you topped up there. So yeah, super simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't buy all the fancy quick fix diet pills. Keep it basic and focus on what works. Quite deliberate about walking to the gym, and I always try and find a gym that's sort of like within 15-30 minutes of me, mainly because I've always worked from home. Because I work from home, it's not always obvious and not always easy to get steps in. And back when I was a personal trainer, you get 10,000-15,000 steps in without just doing your job. When you work from home, you know, it's probably a lot more people experience now, suddenly your steps go down, and if you don't change anything, body fat starts to creep, body composition completely changes, and you start feeling a lot more sluggish. So that cut-off period gives you that space to just kind of reset the mind, start thinking about the training that's coming up. And a lot of people ask me, how do you get motivated for the gym? How do you get yourself fired up for the gym? And the biggest thing for me is because I stick to a specific structure of my training. I don't mix things up all the time. Because I think program hopping is one of the worst things you can do for your training. Because I have a specific structure that I follow throughout the year, my weeks, I get that kind of, like today's Friday, right? And I get that Friday feeling of a specific session. Tomorrow, I know it's a cardio session. Because of this structure, my walks on my day to the gym, my walks on the way to that gym, on the way to the gym. I'm just thinking about the session, and I'm thinking what I did last time, and the main aim of the game today is just to beat whatever I did by at least 1 rep, 1 kilo, whatever it is. And in many cases, specifically when you're dieting, sometimes the aim is just maintenance and making sure that the reps are being done even better. One of the biggest mental health secrets that I think is hugely underrated and underutilized is unplugged walking. One thing a couple of years ago I started doing more of is literally just walking with no earphones, no podcasts, no music. And it sounds pretty crazy because it's the natural default of walking, but I think we're so plugged in. We're so plugged into the matrix on a day-to-day basis, all throughout the day, whether we're working, whether we're on social media, scrolling on our phones, listening to something. It's actually a very weird experience if you suddenly start walking unplugged. And
it's quite similar to meditation where you take away all the distractions. When you walk unplugged, it allows your mind to sort of go from this jumbled state where everything's sort of firing left, right, center to a sort of calm stillness that you start to get 20-30 minutes into your walk. And I'd highly recommend anyone watching this just start with a 20-minute walk, but do it without anything in your ears, nothing in your hands. So you're not on your phone, you're not listening to anything, and it'll be very weird the first few times you do this, but after you get into the habit of it, you'll start finding it one of the best things you can do for your mental health. And it just forms as like a little reset in the middle of the day, and yeah, a great way to clear the mind. One of the reasons why I try and train unplugged as well, away from sort of stimulation, is to help just sort of understand what needs to be done, because there's so many things and so many opportunities at all times. Training, walking, exercising in general, especially from an unplugged state, is what gives me the balance, it gives me the focus, and gives me the sort of wood for the trees aspect to see what I should really be focused, to see what I should be pouring my energy into. Because I think otherwise, if you're always consuming and you're always plugged in, you can never really understand what you truly want. You can never understand what the best decisions are to make, because you're always like relying on other people's inputs. So I think you can train anywhere and get good results. You can train at home, you can train at any budget gym, you can train whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter what you have. All you need to have is progressive equipment. But if you want to get the best possible results and you go into a gym, you gotta go to a serious gym, like Gym Box or anything similar, where people inside are training just as hard as you. They're taking it seriously. They're serious about their goals. What you don't want to be going into a budget gym where someone's doing a lateral raise and they get close to knocking you out because it's so cramped. One thing I like to do when I'm getting ready to warm up chest and back is just in between warm-up sets. Sounds really simple, but just like flexing hard the chest and then flexing the lats like that. The isometric contraction just gets the muscles warmed up more than anything. Just gets the mind-muscle connection going. So when I do my warm-up sets, I'm getting into the right target muscle. So when the working sets come, the right muscles are fired up, and that's what I'm stimulating. So, quick tip, between your warm-ups, contract the working muscles. So if I'm doing legs, it'll be quads, hamstrings. But today is chest and back. So I'll just contract the chest and then contract the lats. When you're warming up in the main sets, let's say you're doing 6 to 10 reps. You're working your warm-up sets. You don't want to be doing loads of reps. You just want to be working around like 3, 4, 5 reps. Work up the weight, save your energy for the main ones. Use the warm-up sets to dial in the movement pattern, get the right muscles working, and get you primed for those working sets. That's a PR there. When I'm doing rows, I don't like to be super strict, so you will see a little bit of movement. But I find when I allow a bit more movement and like a controlled amount of English, body English, and it's consistent, and it's good, and I actually feel my lats a lot more. Find if I'm too strict with rows, it just ends up being in my arm a lot. But the key thing really, whatever form you choose, you keep it consistent. So I allow my lats to stretch, shoulder base to stretch, and then pull it back. But the aim is to keep it consistent throughout. Just hit a 1 rep PR there, 60 kilos for 10 reps. So pretty happy with that. A couple weeks into dieting, lost body weight. That's actually, yeah, 78 kilos this morning. So yeah, not too bad. There's nothing wrong with using straps. If you're gonna go heavy, you're doing pull movements, straps can allow you to not rely on your grip, which is always gonna be a limiting factor. So get some good straps, strap up on your heavy sets, and let your back do the work. Wasn't too happy with the last 2 reps there. Yeah, gassed myself out on the last set. I think I'm slightly cutting short on the range a little bit. Yeah, gassed myself out on the first set PR. I didn't expect it. No aminos today. Literally, that's just on water, that PR. It's a water PR. Key thing with PRs though, you don't get PRs and you can't train hard in the gym about on your phone between sets. You're chatting to your mates on WhatsApp, if you're scrolling through Instagram. You don't get results that way. You've got to be focused. You've got to keep your eyes on the prize. You've got to beat that logbook every single week in some way or shape or form. If you're not doing that, remember, if you're lifting the same weights as you were 12 months ago, chances are you're going to be looking exactly the same. So you've got to be chasing that logbook. You've got to be focused in between your sets. You've got to make sure you're not around. Training hard should leave you gassed. Unprecedented 50 kilo floor press. A lot of people ask me why I do floor presses. It's mainly because I've had a really bad shoulder injury. So it's been bugging me for years from a lot of bad habits from when I was younger. Turns out I had a torn bursa in my right shoulder here. It's really affected a lot of my training for the last couple of years. So my muscle building phase the last couple of years has not been optimal for pushing. But so what I had to do is I had to go right back to the beginning, literally lifting 14 kilos, going super slow. And it's been a frustrating journey, it's been a long journey coming back to normal. But my all-time PR on both arms is 55 kilos for 5, and I did that when I was 87 kilos. I'm 78 kilos today, and I'm gonna attempt 50 kilos one-armed, so it's even harder. And the reason why it's one-armed is because since coming back from the shoulder injury, it's been a lot easier to focus on one arm at a time. And I just think it's just a mental thing that's just keeping me safe and stable. So I'm gonna attempt 50 kilos today, see what happens. Hopefully at least get a couple reps. Bit of nerves kicking in. If you're feeling a bit of positive anxiety before a set, you know you're doing it right. This one's also nerve, not just because it's a new load, but when you're just coming back from injury, there's always that fear in the back of your mind that something's gonna happen. So come on. Come on. I mean, that last rep was hit. That last rep was hit and miss. Holy shit, that last rep was like literally. The reason why this is extra special is a surgeon was pushing me towards either an injection, steroid injection in the shoulder, or going under the knife. He said to me, "You got one more chance, otherwise you're going under the knife." So I decided to do rehab. I decided to take it slow, build it back, and fingers crossed, we're almost there now. No, I was just gone. I think I'm just gassed. So once I've trained in the morning, either it's cardio or weight training, that's when I'll head back. That's when I'll start looking at my calendar, see what's planned for the first block of the day. Usually before my first meal, which is at 12 o'clock, that's when I'll be focusing on work that moves the business forward. That's the creative stuff, the strategic stuff, any projects that are going to help us in the future, are going to help move things forward, improve the product, improve the service. That's what I work on before my first meal in the morning. I tend to be most productive in the morning. For me, every hour in the morning is worth like 2 hours in the afternoon, so I try and get my most deep thinking work done early on. And then after 12 o'clock, that's when I get into Slack, that's when I get into emails. I try and schedule most of my meetings then, podcasts, etc., where it's more reactive, you're putting out fires, it doesn't require as much thinking power, and it's more sort of day-to-day work. So what I learned a couple of years ago is if you're not very intentional with this time in the morning, where you have time to move things forward, it never gets done, and you end up just sort of spinning your wheels and caught in that sort of day-to-day, putting out fire mentality. So I remember back in the day when I used to live at home and I was growing up and I just got into the fitness, started getting into my fitness. I used to, we eat in the family meals, so most of the meals were traditional Indian home-cooked meals in the evening. But I used to always grill a chicken breast to add to the plate, just like put a chicken breast into the plate, into the oven and just grill it for my protein hit. And there'd be certain months in the year that my grandma would say to me, or my dad would say to me, no meat and fish in the house for this month. And for the first year, I was cool. And then the second couple of years after I got into this, I was thinking to myself, I can't do this low protein diet, and I need meat in my life in order to build muscle. I thought if I don't eat meat, I'm not going to build muscle, and if I don't eat meat, I'm not going to optimize my strength in the gym. So I said to her, look, we're not doing this. I appreciate you want to follow this for the household, but I'm not gonna go with these rules. So I look back and I thought, yes, I sort of was very single-minded in the way I was, but I was also probably missing a level of open-mindedness that I didn't have at the time, to find different ways to explore protein and explore living a healthier lifestyle without eating meat. But I was young, immature, and didn't really have the education as well. So when I told my ba recently, I said to her, look, I'm not actually eating meat anymore. She's like, really? I was like, yeah, I'm not eating meat, I'm not eating fish, and now I'm not eating eggs. She's like, so you're vegan? I'm like, yeah. And she was chuffed. She was chuffed. And in fact, she eats dairy. She doesn't eat eggs, but yeah, she was super chuffed. So what do you think about me eating less meat?
તું મીટ નથી ખાતો હું બહુ રાજી થાઉં છું મને બહુ ગમ્યું.
How did I used to eat meat? Did I eat it a lot before?
યા બહુ પહેલા ખાતો તો મને નતું ગમતું પણ તને ભાવે એટલે મારાથી બોલાય નહીં ને કઈ. હવે તું નથી ખાતો હું બહુ રાજી થઈ છું ને તું તો મારા કરતા વધુ. તું તો બટર નથી ખાતો, દૂધ નથી પીતો, દહીં નથી ખાતો, ચીઝ નથી ખાતો. હું તો બધું ખાઉં છું.
Okay, so what to expect on the road to Vegan Shredded.
the main thing I want to get across over the next couple of months is what it truly takes to go to the absolute extreme of body composition and ultimately get shredded, both from a mental perspective and a physical perspective, because there are challenges. Once you get to that level of extreme, it's not just physical, it's more about playing with the mind games. So I want to share the behind the scenes on what it really takes, and doing it on a vegan diet. Okay, so why am I doing this? Between 2010 and 2018, so pretty much at the start of my fitness journey, all the way up to 2018, I was pretty much eating a kilo a day of meat. I was known as a steak guy. Every single one of my birthdays from the age of 18 for the next 10 years, pretty much all steak restaurants. And I thought, this can't be right. I can't be eating a kilo of meat a day. Surely this isn't good for my digestion, and surely this wasn't the way that we should be eating meat. Wasn't really thinking much else beyond that. So I thought to myself, yeah, maybe I'll cut it down. That was around the time when I started doing more intermittent fasting in my day. So now I don't eat my first meal till about 12 o'clock. So that naturally reduced my meal frequency. And I thought to myself, when I moved to that structure, I'm going to drop my meat intake as well. And that ran for a couple of years. And I remember at the time, like, one of my best friends went vegan, who I used to train with. We were training partners for many years. And when he went vegan, he was telling me why he went vegan, some of the documentaries he'd watched. And whenever he sent it to me, I was like, nah, I don't need to watch that. And looking back, it was ignorance. Like, I didn't want to see what he'd seen. I didn't want to see what these people had seen. Around 2019, 2020, I started getting more into my spiritual journey and really more philosophy in my sort of spare time. And I was exploring that, the idea of spirituality, the idea of philosophy, the idea of consciousness, and the fact that we're all connected. And I had these passing thoughts and passing experiences that maybe I should be plant-based, maybe I should go more plant-based. But I never really responded to those sort of callings inside, because I had a few fears that looking back, they were unjustified. But the main things were around protein intake, that I wouldn't get enough protein. And it sounds pretty crazy, sounds pretty superficial, but this was the reality of what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, it's going to impact my training. Why would I want to do that? That's the hour in the day that does more for my mental health than anything. I want to impact that by eating more plant-based. Now, look, all these concerns are unjustified in the reality, but this was the thought process I was having in sort of 2018, 19, 20. Something changed this year. So I was on my mini moon in Cornwall, and we were doing this amazing hike from a beach to Land's End. It was like a 4-hour hike, like completely in the nature. We're walking along the coast. We were taking a break, and we were sitting there on a rock and overlooking literally the sea, the mountain cliffs, seeing like these waves, just hearing the waves crash, seeing the birds fly. Like, just very, like, it was very still, very present, very relaxing. And just something came to my mind. I was like, why am I eating so much meat and fish in my day? And that just came out of nowhere. This thought just came out of nowhere. And I just thought to myself, why am I doing this? So I turned to Chandni and I said to her, yeah, I just had this thought. What do you think? She's like, well, you've been thinking about this for the last 18 months. You're never acting on it. I was like, yeah, but I think I'm going to try and make a change now. That was August 13th, was my last meat of fish. And then on January the 1st, I decided to drop the eggs. And this was another fear. I thought, well, I can't drop eggs because, like, how are you going to replace eggs, sourdough, and avocado for breakfast every morning? And how are you going to replace that taste of the yolk that spreads all over it? But again, it was just an unjustified fear. And I remember watching a documentary by David Attenborough recently about his vision for the world. And he was talking about the real issue of climate change that we're facing, and the issue of biodiversity that we're experiencing a neglect of and a loss of. And one of the biggest things he said as a call to action was we need to be more plant-based in order to help solve that, because it's not necessarily something that might impact our lifetime, but if we're thinking about generational health, which is something that I'm so big on when it comes to a fitness perspective, surely this is something we should be thinking out more from an overall planet perspective. Like, if we want our planet to be here for 100, 150, 200 years, do we not have this responsibility to at least do a little bit to help? And we can often think, but one person, does that really make a difference? One person eating a little bit less meat, or recycling a bit more, or doing a little bit for the environment, does that make a difference? Yeah, but if everyone thought like that, then of course, like, nothing's going to happen. The way we the way we see a world transformed is one life-changing journey at a time. And it's the same when it comes to climate change, or it's the same when it comes to biodiversity, or whatever the area that we're trying to solve. It happens one person at a time. So eating a little bit less meat, eating a little bit less fish, being more sustainable in our choices is a responsibility that we all share. The big thing I found is it's harder if you care about protein. You know, if you care about fitness and you care about protein, then it's harder. If you don't care about protein, and I think everyone should care about protein because having sufficient amounts of protein is important. But if you care about protein, that's when things get a bit more, you've got to think about it a bit more. What I learned is that we're not there as you know, we're not there in society. Whilst there's a lot more vegan options, we're not there in that protein is a priority. So you just got to be more intentional about it. But the good news is you can travel as a vegan. So that fear is, again, alleviated. But a lot of these things were just things I've been thinking about, and a lot of things that when I speak to other people about being more plant-based, these are the common fears that come up. But yeah, hopefully that should give you a background as to why I'm doing this and some of the thought processes that are going on in my mind around it. Okay, so I'm about to cook one of my favorite meals that I have now. It's what's replaced the eggs for my first meal. So it's tofu scramble. The way I make this is super simple. I prep the avocado in advance and just smash it up so it looks something like that, which doesn't look that appealing right now, but we'll do it in a second. The second thing I do is get the tofu out of the fridge and get the scale out. Now, there's always a bit of there's always an argument around should you weigh your food or not. My answer is if you're after fat loss and you're after getting results with your fat loss on a week-on-week basis, then if you're not weighing it, you're just guessing. If you're guessing, you're probably overeating. We always have an expectation of about 1% of body weight per week. If you want to achieve that level of result, you need to be weighing your food. Long term, and once you're in maintenance phase, then yeah, you can, once your education builds, you can eat more intuitively, have more flexibility. But there's, you know, when people think, oh, it takes a long time to weigh food, no, it doesn't. You literally have the scale there and you put your food on there. There's no difference to if you're just having your bowl there. So anyway, 220 grams of tofu for this meal. So I'll just stick it on the scale. And all you're gonna do is really simple. Grab the tofu in your hands, and then all you're gonna do is just squash it like that. And that's your tofu scramble, and you get another plate. A bit messy, and then you just keep squirting it like that. And that's your tofu scramble. So this is about 225, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of volume. And what this ends up tasting like, once I put herbs and spices in, which you'll see in a second, what this ends up tasting like is scrambled eggs. The brand I'm using, by the way, is tofu. This one's pretty solid. Tastes good, digests well. Another thing that people have an issue with when they go more plant-based is digestion, and they start feeling more bloated. So the advice that I'd give that worked really well for me is just that is to ease into it and also build it up slowly. When you build it up slowly, the fiber that you're starting to intake doesn't become such a shock to your system, because it's mainly the extra fiber that causes the issues. So if you're not using a 1 cal spray, then start using it, because it's much better than using olive oil on a teaspoon. Firstly, olive oil on a teaspoon, you're probably not tracking it properly. It's adding more calories than you need. This is a really easy way to keep it light and get the exact same result from your olive oil. When it comes to herbs and spices, I think the best way to do this is just keep it super simple. When people ask about, oh, I need more flavor in my food, instead of changing the food on a regular basis and create more decision fatigue, the best way to do it is literally just to rotate your herbs and spices. When you rotate your herbs and spices, it makes every meal you have slightly different. It's a really easy tip to just implement. So one of the questions we always get at the start of sort of a fat loss journey is, how do I add more variety into my meals? How do I mix it all up on a consistent basis? I find that if you're busy and you've got a lot of priorities that you're juggling, you want to keep things as automated as possible. And for about 80% of your week, you want to keep it as structured and as free of decisions as possible. Decision fatigue is a real thing. And people don't realize just how much decision fatigue zaps their cognitive space in their heads. One of the best ways to remove decision fatigue is to follow a meal plan, eat 80% of meals similar, and then use variety more in times on the weekends, in your dinners, when you have a bit more free time to play with this. Otherwise, when you're busy and you have a lot of things to do, just knowing what you're going to eat in advance can make such a difference. So if you're expecting like gourmet level presentation here, this isn't the place to be. One way to keep it super simple, one way to keep nutrition super simple is to find meals that taste good, that satiate you, and that make you feel good, that you can cook in less than 5 minutes. This is one of those meals. You can have a bunch of these meals that cook in less than 5 minutes. You can repeat on a regular basis, and they make you feel good, perform good, and digest well. Then you're onto a winner. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't try and make 30-minute meals and spend 40 minutes on your presentation. Just keep it super simple, and it'll make eating healthy a sustainable lifestyle solution for you. So as you can see, I literally just dump it all on top. It has a lot of volume. Not the best presented, so yeah, you have to bear with me with that. But it tastes incredible, and that's all that matters. Quick tip: salt has a bad rap, but if you're not salting your foods, and you're not eating foods that naturally have a lot of salt in it, definitely salt your foods. It's going to help with hydration, and overall functioning of your body. Right, it's time. Let's eat. That whole concept of life is easier with chicken is something I was living for ages, but I look back and I think, it's just, I don't think that was well, I know now it was completely false. And the simple thing, like for the fact that for so long I thought I couldn't drop eggs, found out this, discovered tofu scramble, and everything's changed. And I haven't even thought about eggs since. So yeah, the lesson is keep an open mind.
So Akash has been talking about veganism for probably quite some time. It's always been at the back of his mind. He always talks through his views, but never really taken action on it. So since August last year is when he decided to go vegan and just continue on with the eggs. So for me, I thought it was great. Obviously, fully support what he's doing, and it's been a great journey. So in January this year, he stopped eggs completely, so fully vegan, and it's been good because before we met, I used to eat a lot less meat, and since especially living with him, we have meat every single day, and I sometimes get sick of it, and it's just through ease of cooking. So for me, it's been really nice to have less meat in general and eat more vegetarian food. But outside of that, everything's pretty much remained the same, and it's been so far so good.
So vegan with eggs, do you want to explain that?
You used to say that, so I was like, oh, he's vegan with eggs.
Yeah, so I used to say to everyone, I'm vegan plus eggs, because I thought it's just easier to explain to people, yeah, the only thing I eat is eggs, but everything else is vegan. But obviously, can't be vegan with eggs. Okay, so the challenge is to get shredded on a vegan diet in 13 weeks. Each time I've dieted, it's been a different constraint. 2014, the first time going to the extreme. 2017 is to do it whilst consolidating and living my normal lifestyle. 2019 was doing it after the reset of my collapse. And 2022, this year, it's doing it vegan. And this is the big constraint. Because remember, it's very easy to forget the journey. When you're just living your lifestyle, it becomes intuitive, you're maintaining year round, you start to forget what it's like for people to go on this journey, which is why I've always been a fan of trainers and coaches constantly revisiting the journey every couple of years, just to sharpen the sword, gain more empathy, and also to test themselves to the extreme. There's nothing worse than being a coach or trainer still relying on their pictures from 3 years ago. So I always like to practice what I preach, lead from the front, and test myself to the extreme on a regular basis. So what's happened since the last time I dieted down? I've really been focused on finding the ultimate lifestyle solution where I feel, look, and perform my best. For the last 18 months, I've stayed below 80 kilos for the first time for that length of period of time. And I really found my sweet spot. So in terms of my starting point for this 13-week cut, it's probably the best I've ever started. Now it's just about getting to the extreme. So it allows me to take my time a little bit more and hopefully get into even better condition. I mean, the aim is to get to, is to see more lines on my arse than before. So let's see what I get to. So the overall setup to start with is training 4 days a week in the gym,
So I'm training on a split, which is chest back delts one day, and then legs and arms on the other day, and then chest back delts, legs and arms. So 4 different workouts on a rotation. I do like training arms with legs, just because I find doing arms at the end of upper body is always difficult, and doing arms at the start of legs is a really good primer for the nervous system to then get into the hard work of the leg session. So that's the workout split. You'll be able to see it on this video here. I'll put up the workout split. So with my nutrition, I've just got up our Pro app right here. So we've got 2,400 calories to kick off with, 160 grams protein, 70 grams fat, and 280 grams carbs. And the way it's set up is super simple. So it's tofu, avocado, and sourdough. The next meal is protein and oats, banana, berries, and a bit of dark chocolate. And then the last meal is edamame, spaghetti, tempeh, kidney beans, green veggies, and rice. And then I'll have another protein bowl after dinner as a sort of like mini dessert. So I'll put the exact specifics of this on the video here. And yeah, that's the general setup. Super easy, super simple. I don't like to veer off this too much, mainly because I want to keep decision fatigue at the absolute minimum. I want to sort of run this on autopilot. And then if I have social occasions pop up, if I have different events pop up, I just adjust things accordingly. In fact, that's one of the things that has actually been an interesting experience doing it vegan, in that I didn't realize how on autopilot I've been with regards to my calculation of macros and calories. When I'd be at a restaurant, I'd be at someone's house, normally I'd be like, oh yeah, that's probably around X amount of calories. That's about that many protein grams, etc. When you're doing it vegan, because there aren't many sort of single macro foods, especially when it comes to protein, single protein macronutrient foods, except for like mock meat stuff, which I'm not a huge fan of. You never know if it's the protein or if it's the fiber that's filling you up. So it kind of throws you off a bit. So that's definitely a learning experience with regards to nutrition that I didn't quite anticipate, but I'm looking forward to exploring as the journey progresses. So I'm keeping steps around 10,000 to start with, and cardio is going to be 3 times a week for 30 minutes on the stepper. Now all these things are going to be changing over the couple of weeks. That's just my starting point, and that's an important thing to remember on any transformation journey, is that the starting point is literally the starting point. It's the foundation. After that, you make the tweaks accordingly to how fast you're progressing, and then push forwards from there. One thing I'm focusing on this time that I want to learn from previous dieting experiences is timing my peak better. So in the past, my default is just to push harder and harder and harder, make more changes each week, dig deeper and deeper into a deficit. But what ends up happening is I over diet, I flatten myself out, and I don't give myself the necessary rest and recovery to look my best, when I want to look my best. So in the past, I've always looked my best a couple of weeks after, whereas this time I want to run a few test runs on my peak week. I want to run a few deload periods just to make sure I bring my best on April Fool's Day.